And I remember one of the reviewers of the manuscript said, Professor Griffith needs to put a footnote telling the readers he is not endorsing the use of cocaine for sex. He's not recommending people use cocaine for sex.
Yeah, well, yeah, I want that formula. No, sorry. Anyway, continue. Well, good morning to you, Ivelaw
Good morning to
Lloyd
you. Maybe
Griffith.
good afternoon to you.
Actually, afternoon for me. It's so good to see you again, you
Good
know.
to see you again, Dawn.
Indeed,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
The last time we spoke was earlier this year, and you
Hmm.
had written this book, right?
Absolutely.
Challenge
Yep.
Sovereignty, the impact of drugs, crime, terrorism, and cyber
Yep.
threats in the Caribbean.
Hmm.
And now, here again, you have written a novel, the first
Yep.
one. Yes? I
My
mean,
first novel.
you're a prolific writer, if I must say, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and let me tell you, I read it. And
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was drawn in. It's so engaging. No, but seriously, it's so authentic, authentically Caribbean. So Sylvie's love and loss.
Let me make a point in that very point you just made. I've got another good friend in London. He's a very accomplished writer himself,
Yes.
David Dabadine. David, he was professor at Warwick for many decades.
Ah, okay.
He's a former ambassador of Ghana to China and the UNESCO. David wrote me an email last week saying, Ivelaw, you had me 4 hours not putting this book down.
Exactly right. You know, I
I
mean,
finished it in 4 hours.
yes, after every chapter, you want to know what happens next. And
Hmm.
let me tell you, that is the mark of a good writer. But
Thank you. Thank
you're
you.
you're a political scientist, uh,
Uh-huh.
an academic, a
Yep.
researcher. I mean, and now
Now a
you've gone,
novelist.
now a novelist. So
Hmm.
this is a big leap, right, from
It
your
is.
scholarly writings. So
It is.
yeah, is this something you always wanted to do? I mean, did you envision this?
Well, the backstory for this novel actually is connected to my scholarly academic work.
Yes, I could, yeah.
And it goes back 2.5 decades when I was working on another project and had this astounding experience in Grenada. And I said, then, I'm going to have to write a novel about this whole thing when I retire. The experience in Grenada in 1994, I captured part of it in that book that I wrote, the book called Drugs and Security.
Mm.
And I remember one of the reviewers of the manuscript said, Professor Griffith needs to put a footnote telling the readers he is not endorsing the use of cocaine for sex. He's not recommending people use cocaine for sex.
Yeah, well, yeah, I want that formula. No, sorry. Anyway, continue.
So it grew out of that, and I decided I'd forgotten about it. Then when I retired in 2019, I said, I've got to get to this project I've always had at the back of my mind.
Yes.
And I began to work on it in 2020, towards the end of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So,
But
but
it was kind of,
how difficult was it difficult to make that sort of leap?
it was challenging in one respect, but I'll tell you what helped me considerably.
Mm.
In an earlier incarnation, I'd been a journalist. I did print and radio.
Ah, yes, indeed.
And
Yes.
so I had those skills about writing without jargon, writing with simplicity,
Mm.
writing with a certain deadline in mind, a certain number
Yes.
of words.
Uh,
And I culled some of those journalistic skills from way back,
mm.
brought to bear. But the difficulty was, the challenge was, I had this inclination continually to try to pull the scholarship in by trying to put the footnotes in, have references. And my friends who were reading chapters and my editor said, Law, stick to the storyline. No need, no need for footnotes. So I had this tug of war between
Yeah.
the fiction writer and the scholarly writer, and
Mm.
I eventually reluctantly had to give up
Yes.
that scholarship inclination. And but
Yeah. Okay.
it was a labor of love.
Indeed. But did you enjoy it? I mean, so what was the process like? You would get up in the morning and how would you start? And how would you separate your scholarly self from your
Well, I've had over the decades in the academy, I always had several projects working on
ah,
simultaneously.
ah, ah,
I would have classes to prepare for. I have a speech to give in a month or two. I'd
mm,
have an article I'm working on. I had a book I'm working on. As a matter of fact, this year, Sylvie's Love and Loss is my third book published. I had
jeez.
a book come out, other than The Challenge Sovereignty, I had one on Guyana and Suriname,
Yes.
which I edited for Routledge of London.
Mm,
So I'd always known how to juggle and manage several. And I developed an ability to multitask.
mm,
And so I would get up and I have a project that's going. I
yes.
take care. I try to work in hourly segments.
Okay.
I
Okay.
work on an hour on this, go to another project, come back, and maybe go back to that first project, continue in the second hour.
Mm,
And that working in hourly segments allowed me to see the progress as it was unfolding, but
yes.
also allow me to see where I was not making enough progress as I would have liked.
Mm,
And there were times when I did 2 hours to
yeah.
kind of made up. But the novel itself, as I had done with all my writing, I would kind of outline the project.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I'll tell you something, this novel would have been much bigger had it not been for my wife.
Okay.
Because initially it was 11 chapters. She said, honey, this is your first novel. Nobody wants to read 700 pages. You want to
Yes.
write a big, massive. She said, cut it
Just
short.
get to it. Because yes.
Just keep it short.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
It
turned
worked.
out to be
Mhm.
shorter than I intended, which gives me an opportunity to do a sequel.
Indeed.
So hopefully
Oh,
in a
you
year
just
or two
steal
from
one of my
now,
questions. You just
yes,
yes.
yes,
But
yes,
in
yes.
reading it, so invariably, as you sort of hinted before, you managed to
Mhm.
incorporate your anthropological self into
Yes,
it.
yes.
I mean, was that? I guess it deliberate? I guess it's because
It
of
it was deliberate because the overall thrust of the book,
hmm,
the novel though it is to reveal some of the warts of our region, of our societies,
hmm, hmm,
North America, Caribbean, Europe, in relation to drugs.
yes,
And
yes,
it's as much a sociological society issue
hmm,
as it is an individual Sylvie challenge.
yes.
So I remember one of the I did several readings so far. As a matter of fact, I've got a book
Hmm,
launch in 2 weeks
okay.
at Adelphi University here in Long Island. And at one of the readings, someone came to me and said, Dr. Griffith, I read this book before coming to this session, and I never realized that the drugs issue is such a pervasive issue in the Caribbean.
Hmm,
And
hmm,
I said, yeah.
yes.
So I felt comforted that somebody would understand that there was a sub narrative
Hmm,
of saying to readers and saying to the audience, Sylvie's trauma and trials and tribulation are a microcosm of the trauma and tribulation and trials of the writ large
hmm,
Caribbean,
yeah,
of the writ large United States. So there's a lot of sociology, a
yeah.
lot of geography. One of the complexities I try to capture in the novel is not only complexity of the characters,
Hmm,
but complexities of geography.
yes,
There's a
yes,
lot of Grenadian there, there's a lot of Jamaican there, there's a lot
yes.
of Caribbean. Trinidad is in there, Venezuela is in there, Guyana is in there.
Hmm,
Uh, but United States is in there,
yeah.
Canada is in there. So there's a complexity in regard to Caribbean, not United States, in regard to the characters.
Yes. And I was going to ask you that the characters, I mean, Sylvie, Rastaman, I mean, her best friend and all of that,
Mhm.
they sort of, so they obviously represent some of the people you came across when you were doing your studies for your scholarly text, right? And But when I look at these characters, they're like they're the little people, the people on the ground who are who get involved in all of this drug shipment and everything else. But they're the little people. They're the ones that almost don't count, but they're the ones always getting caught up. So yeah, it must have been very intricate to sort of weave all of that together. Yeah.
Mm. Well, actually, Don, the only central character
Hmm.
that I met in Grenada is Sylvie herself. Sylvie, not her real name,
Hmm.
but that woman I met in Belmont is the only actual representation of a character. The others are made up.
Hmm.
And they're made up because I've known for decades enough about how the drugs business works, how
Yes.
the connections work, how the sale, the production, the money laundering, the elements of the matrix work to be
Yes.
able to construct characters to play a role. But of course, as any novelist would do, some of those characters are drawn from my own network of experiences,
Of course.
some
Yes.
personal experiences, some family experiences. For example, if you take one of the central characters, Mama Roberts,
Ah.
the woman who raised Sylvie,
Yes.
adopted grandmother. If
Mm.
you know my family, you know my grandmother
No,
is
yes.
what I use to talk about Mama Roberts
Yes, yes, yes.
because she was a market vendor. She adopted a whole lot of kids. I grew up with a lot of sociological cousins because grandma raised this person, took this person, and saw this person suffering and said, bring him and bring her. And
That's right.
so the
Yes.
characters are drawn from a variety of social and personal experiences and networks.
Indeed. I mean, any Caribbean person reading this can relate to it because we all have
Mhm.
grandmothers, aunts, uncles, and everything that fit almost exactly the characters that you've created for us. And
Yes.
interestingly, I see you in Doc. Yes. And I'm thinking, okay, this is his research. This is what he was doing while he was writing all
Mhm.
those scholarly, research
Yes.
scholarly books.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
um, so, going forward a little bit. So like at the end of the book now,
Mhm.
people are going to feel, well, it's like you're left hanging because
Mhm.
there has to be something else. There has to be a sequel. So obviously it was deliberate on your part because you
Yes,
said,
it
okay,
was.
yes,
Yes, it was.
there will be a sequel. When?
But John, before we go to the sequel possibility, let me talk about two things which I'm hoping I was able to capture in the book. I wanted
Mm,
to, in the novel, bring in some of the culture dimensions of the Caribbean.
yes, of course.
I wanted to capture some of the foods of the Caribbean.
Yes,
I
yes.
wanted to capture some of the fauna of the Caribbean.
Mm,
Uh, I grew up in Guyana, and I know from other Caribbean experiences the importance of the organic natural medicine, herbs. And I
yes,
wanted to reflect some of that in the Caribbean. I also wanted to reflect some of the vernacular local language. And
yes,
I know that some North American or other audiences may not understand, but I think I have not so much as to confuse people who are not able to dissect
yes,
what the
yes,
vernacular, what the Creole is. But I wanted to, our region is a region of rich language,
absolutely.
but richness not only in English or Spanish or French or Dutch or Papamiento, but richness in the Creole vernacular.
The Creole, exactly, the
Yep. So I
pathways
wanted to
in
infuse some
Jamaica.
of that.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Because in certain parts of the book, when the Jamaican characters are
Right.
introduced, they speak in Jamaican patois, right?
Yep.
And of course,
Yep.
the Canadians have their own sort of
Slight
nuance.
variation. Yep.
And there are differences, and yeah,
Hmm.
I could tell, I could hear the differences. And
Yeah.
yeah, but even for non-Caribbean people, based on the context, they definitely will understand.
I'm
Absolutely.
hoping. I'm
Yes.
hoping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me tell you one other thing which I try to infuse in the book. I wanted to reflect some of the music
Ah,
of the
yes.
Caribbean. I
Mm,
invoke a lot of like Bob Marley and Peter
yes, you
Tosh
did,
and
Peter
Kofi.
Tosh. Yes.
And I particularly wanted to reflect, even though chapter 3 alone
Mm,
has a title involving gratitude, I see the book overall as reflecting the importance of recognizing what Kofi calls blessings and gratitude.
yes, true.
Because even though Sylvie had a lot of negative experiences, she was blessed enough
Mm,
to have people who help her,
yes.
whether it was Mama Roberts or whether it was people in Canada
Mm,
who helped her deal with that arrest and
yeah,
conviction,
indeed.
whether it was the sergeant when she was back at the airport in Grenada who
Mm,
helped to navigate her through the immigration and customs. So I wanted to, and I've asked at the book launch next 2 weeks, I've asked them to have 1 hour, 1 minute
uh,
of that song from Kofi
from Kofi,
Coast.
yes. So,
I want to play it because for
yes.
me, that song is a powerful anthem about blessings, about
Very
gratitude.
much so. Yes,
Yep,
yes.
yep.
And it's very authentically Caribbean. And
Mm-hmm,
when I read that in the book, that's exactly what I was hearing in my head, that song,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Yeah. And I mean, it's so authentic in even in the beginning, the airport scene. So you're walking through the airport. And it's exactly what I experienced. So, you're waiting long for your luggage to come out and you wonder, why is it taking them so long, right? You go to the customs officer and it's like, what? Yeah, bother me, what you want? You know? So it really and truly is authentic. So I think that's, definitely one of the successes of your
you
novel, right?
know, it's about 3.5 decades ago, I had a consultancy, and one of the executives, and this was a company in New York that
Yes.
was starting business in the Caribbean.
Mm,
So they wanted to have someone who knows the region to kind of brief them on elements of structure,
right.
organization, culture, government, society. And I remember the president of the company asked me, he said, Professor Griffith, why is it the customs officers in the Caribbean don't smile at you when you he
True.
found it strange that they're so gruff, they're so formal, they're so
Yes. Yeah. Which is yeah, very Caribbean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Indeed. So everything about the book is very authentic. And that's
Thank you.
really, really what, I appreciated from it. And then
Hmm.
obviously, so towards the end now, well, at the end, you're saying that her journey, her loves and losses will take her to Guyana.
Hmm.
That's your birthplace.
Yes,
So
yes.
um, deliberate, I think.
Deliberate. Hmm.
And and is this because, well, obviously Guyana is also one of the areas in one of the countries in the Caribbean that is,
Hmm.
plagued with these kinds of, things,
Yep.
trafficking and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm not going to ask you about what's coming, but
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
But Guyana appears earlier in the book
Hmm.
through Sylvie's
Her
father.
father, yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes,
That scoundrel guy who was
yes,
messing with the two teenage girls, got one pregnant, and had to run to
exactly.
Ghana.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's all connected. You mention
yeah.
things and then you it's sort of threaded through the entire book.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so that I think that's what will keep the readers interesting. It certainly kept me interested. So I mean,
Yeah.
so
I plan to begin work on the sequel early next year. I have
uh,
2 projects I want to finish off this year,
mhm,
and then I'll turn in earnest to
right,
the
yes.
sequel.
Indeed. But you're still an academic. I mean, I know you're retired,
Hmm.
but I mean, you still think academically. You're still writing, involved in
Hmm.
academic projects as well,
Oh
aren't you?
yeah. Oh
Yes.
yeah.
And that will continue.
That will continue. I'll keep. We had a reading in Manhattan, and one of the members in the audience asked me, "Ivelaw, when you die, what do you want to be known for?
Ah,
Your scholarly work or your fiction work?"
yes.
I said both.
Truly.
Why do you have to? Why it has to be either or?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm still keeping both tracks.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
my last question was going to ask, is it safe to say this is your new genre? Well, maybe now it's safe to say that it is continuing, right?
Hmm.
Your academic and your fiction writing will continue.
Yep.
On
Yep.
yes,
Yep. I
indeed.
just finished a manuscript of a book, an academic book for a Jamaican publisher. You probably know Ian Randall.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Ian,
yes.
who's a good friend, asked me to write a book on Guyana's oil and climate change. I
Ooh,
just finished that manuscript.
yes.
And today I'm beginning work on a chapter for an encyclopedia on local government in Guyana. So I have this scholarly
Yes.
thing, just pick up on the
And
sequel to Sylvie's Love
yes.
soon.
I mean, where you find time to live? Well, I mean,
Uh,
yeah, you have a wife, and I'm sure you do things together, but it sounds
yep.
to me like you're constantly on the go. But you
My
must,
granddaughter says, and I know she was channeling my wife. She said, Papa, you retired, right? What's all these webinars and conferences? Why are you, where are you going again?
mm,
You know, she was hearing her grandmother talk to
yeah.
our daughter or son.
Oh, yes.
So,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
well, you know what? Listen, when you're retired, it doesn't mean you're dead. It means that you have
No,
the time to
to
pursue
do other
other
things,
interests, and that's exactly what
other
you're doing.
things. Yep,
Yes.
yep.
And
And over the decades, one of the things that I embraced was incorporating family in some of what I did.
mm, yeah,
And so over the years, many of the trips I did, I took my wife and the kids, or I took my wife. I did a book launch of Challenge Sovereignty in Trinidad. My
yeah,
son was there with me the
nice,
entire 4 days.
excellent.
My wife and I spent her birthday last month in St. Vincent.
Uh,
Incidentally, if you haven't gone to the new Sandals Resort in St. Vincent,
St.
go to it.
Vincent. Ah, I haven't. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Okay, okay.
And the Prime Minister of St. Vincent is a friend of mine from way back. So we met him. My wife was there. So we had a wonderful
Mm,
conversation. Three of
mm,
us. So I always try to keep family.
right.
If I have a reading in Queens, Borough Saturday, my son is going to come to it.
Okay. So you incorporate life
I incorporate,
and work.
I incorporate.
Yes,
Yep. I
indeed.
had a book launch of Challenge Sovereignty at the university I was provost at once. I think it was in April. My
Mm,
granddaughter came, my wife came, my
yeah.
daughter came, my sister-in-law came.
Oh, excellent.
I
Excellent.
incorporate family.
Well, that's what you call balance. That's
Hmm.
definitely what you call balance. And
I try to do it. Try
yes,
to do
you
it.
have found it. And you know
Hmm.
what? I enjoyed that book. I'm sure others will as well. And I mean,
Hmm.
authenticity is what really spoke to me. So I want to
Hmm.
thank you for going
Thank you.
this other way.
Well, let me say one more thing before we go. I'm
Mm,
hoping we got a lot of wonderful encouragement as you have and applause for the
mm.
book. And it's already been recommended for the Borkas Prize in Trinidad,
Ah,
Caribbean Literature.
that's huge.
I It's been recommended. I haven't talked to my publishers yet. The Guyana Prize for Literature, there's talk about nominating it for that.
Mm.
But I've been invited to the St. Croix Literary Festival next
Well,
April.
and I was about to say, well, maybe you need to be at the Calabash Literary Festival in Jamaica that usually happens in May. And
Mhm.
I'm sure it will happen again this year, although the venue where it's usually held was um, damaged by the recent hurricane.
Again, yeah.
However, they have relaunched and reopened. So I am hoping that
Hmm.
it will come back this year.
Who
And
knows?
I would love to see you there doing some reading.
Okay. All
Yes,
right. Yeah.
indeed.
There's going to be a book launch in Grenada itself.
Ah,
Planning has
fabulous.
begun for that for next spring with the
Okay.
university. There's a private university called St. George's University.
Mm, okay.
They and the people from the tourism ministry are planning a book launch in Grenada. I've
Okay.
got ideas of how the book can be used in the tourism sector in Grenada.
Yes.
Give
Yes.
them some pointers. So it should do well.
Excellent.
It
Excellent.
should do well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank you,
talk
Don.
to me and for writing a book that really speaks to me. And I'm sure it's going
Mhm.
to speak to others. I'm just, one person in the many that will read it and really be moved by it. So
Thank you.
you
Thank you.
again. Yes.
Well, continue good luck with your own work and look forward to reading the review whenever you publish it.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. It will be in next, what are we in? December,
November.
the December issue.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
will forward it to you as well. All
All
right.
right.
Well, you
Thank you much, Don.
take care of yourself and thank you
Take
once
care. All
again.
right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.